Bash Venture back with another video, and on this video I'll show you how to make some extra money off of scrap brass you can easily find at Goodwill or the Ark. So the type of brass that I specifically picked up is a lamp today. I actually got about 5 different lamps ranging anywhere from like $3 all the way up to about $6, depending on if it was for sale or not. And more or less I just wanted to buy this just to see how much profit you could actually make, if there was any, off of, you know, just getting brass lamps and brass parts and all the copper wire and everything left over from all these extra brass, you know, instruments and fixtures that are from the 80s and 90s that people just don't want anymore. And the first thing I did to even determine which lamps I wanted to pick up, one of the quickest ways is to get a neodymium magnet, something really strong and really small that you can just carry with you. And what that'll do is that'll at least help you distinguish between ferrous and non-ferrous metals. Ferrous metals being stuff like iron and steel, you know, like my hammer over here that is definitely magnetic, versus stuff that is brass or copper. Like I've got this copper rod right here, which is, you know, I definitely know it's copper, I bought it myself, but there's no magnetism to it whatsoever. So what that will help you determine when it comes to scrapping metals is if it's quickly sticks to it. Like I actually know for a fact that this hinge right here is either stainless steel or something at least ferrous that is more than likely worth less than the brass that I'm actually going for. And of course you can just find that out by it sticks a little bit, not too bad. That might be what's underneath it here. It might be that hinge that is just steel. And very easily you can just take a magnet and go through this, try to find what is steel and what is potentially brass. At that point, you know, it helps me determine, without damaging the item, if I actually want to bring it home with me, however that is. Another quick indicator is a lot of lamps like this have a weight on them, just like this one actually does. Now a lot of the times this is just lead. Lead is going to be a darker color. I suspect that this is either, it's a high chance it's lead, it might be pewter or steel or something, but either way it's also not magnetic. So that's one of the things you can get messed with buying something that's really not worth it. But as you can see, most of this base here looks to be cast brass. Another quick indicator is if you can actually see any kind of scrapes away here, you can see if it's painted aluminum or something like that, which of course that's not going to be worth almost anything. Still worth a little bit, but not worth nearly as much as brass. To me, without trying to really scrape into this yet, it seems like brass. So what I'm going to do is start taking this apart, and we'll start determining what's what. Got the lamp all broken down into all its individual pieces, and I believe that I've more or less can determine what's brass and what's not at this point. I think almost all my fittings over here are going to be brass. Looks like, with the exception of a little screw there. And this is of course the even easier way to separate stuff that's going to be brass and not. Looks like all the washers were steel. Alright. Got this whole base here, which looks to be brass. If you look in the side, you can see a weird kind of glistening brass, so it's almost guaranteed to not be aluminum because there's no reason to paint inside there. They will be painting, you know, on this part, or you know, actually I suppose they wouldn't be painting this, they'd probably just be coating it. So what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to take a file just to make sure it's not aluminum. Try to get through that coating. And if you start to see silver metal, which it looks like this might actually be silver underneath, then it's aluminum. Okay. Actually, you can just check the shavings here. Yep, sure enough, this is just aluminum. How unfortunate. So it's just coated in brass. On to the next part here. Let's see. Still brass. Yep, looks like this is brass at least. So that means chances are this is what this is as well. Yep. I was pretty worried that this is aluminum because, you know, it's just got its own coating on the inside here. Don't know if it is or not. I think this might actually be brass. Yeah, I think it is. Pretty neat. Where's my magnet? So surprisingly, there's something magnetic in there. Both sides. Here and here. Looks like they both have one of these nuts in them, so I'm going to have to use my vise to get it apart. Let's see here. I'm guessing all these little parts are actually brass because it'd be I don't know, it'd be kind of silly to cast them out of aluminum. Yep, that's definitely brass. Brass. Oh, I did two of those. Brass. It's hard to tell. Yeah, that's brass. Now these feel really lightweight, so I'm guessing these are aluminum. But I'd be wrong. They're brass. Alright. Last one is this big old hunker. Unfortunately, looks like this is aluminum as well. So it looks to me like this is like a lacquer that they coated after maybe this is just the result of brass coating aluminum. Gonna have to be on the lookout for that. So unfortunately the two big heavy parts to that lamp were not brass. So I don't think I'm going to be getting my money's back on this one, but that's okay. We got some spare copper that if I strip down into actually being copper, that should be worth some money. But I have a couple more lamps to do. I will show basically the weights before and after and all the pieces I think I got that are brass versus aluminum, and we'll get some totals at the end of the video. And so for now I'm signing off, and we'll be back after all those totals. Alright, got all 5 lamps broken down into their respective metals, at least what I hope is their respective metals. And I was actually pretty happy with what I was able to get out of just not really knowing that much going into this, with what I was able to figure out with magnetic metals and scrape testing and chip testing and all that. But what I was able to come up with is a whole Home Depot bucket full of aluminum, which should be worth probably about a third of what brass is worth, unfortunately, but still worth something, more than what I paid for probably. So I've got this whole box of brass here, pretty decently heavy. I'd say maybe there's 20 pounds of aluminum, 10 pounds of brass. Even went so far as breaking down the copper cabling, and I was going to break it down even further. I started to, but man, trying to get that sheathing off copper wire is just not worth your time. But besides that, I did get a few seal parts that I don't really know what to do with, just old lamp insides. They generally won't give you too much for those, so I'm probably just going to hold on to them and see what I can do. Besides that, kind of a weird surprise was I came across this weight here in the bottom of one of the lamps, and it's, as you can see, steel because it's already starting to rust. And it did kind of offset the weight of that whole lamp quite a bit, and it was kind of a surprise because I knew about that much was there. I assumed it might be that thin, but as you can see, it got much bigger. About, see, I found one more of those, but it was all aluminum, so I'm actually kind of happy about that. And the only thing of note besides those weights that were kind of a surprise, if you plan on doing this as a hobby, this is what I would consider really pitted cast aluminum, and pretty much every time I scraped it away it just became a bright silver, so that seems to be a good indication to me that it's aluminum. And besides that, brass seems to be a lot smoother. No matter how far I cut into this, it's still brass, and this looks like some pretty smooth casting. So I'm thinking that if you see a really pitted metal and you don't want aluminum, stay away. If you're aiming for just brass, try to go for something smooth. That seemed to be pretty much all 5 of the lamps were that, met that kind of a rule. So I'm going to head off to the scrapyard now and take the stuff that I think will be worth it. They'll give me a little weigh out and everything, and I'll share that with you guys when I come back. And I'm back from the scrapyard. I didn't do too bad, all things considered. I believe I pretty much broke even on what I invested at the actual store versus what I was actually able to get out just by going down to the local scrapyard and just saying, here's my scrap, and them giving me my cash without actually telling me what the price was or anything. I looked up what kind of the national averages were, and I would say these are probably about 70% of the national average, which is fine because, you know, they have to make their money too. But what I found out, let's see how well this will actually come up in camera. You want to stare at that and take a screenshot. But what I was able to do is this top line here this is actually the copper wire that I wasn't able to actually strip down. It was actually about a pound of that. Gave me 52 cents for that. Not a big deal, but considering it was just extra wire on this project, kind of awesome. The actual yellow brass was 9 pounds total. Don't worry about the gross, it's all about the net here. So 9 pounds total at $1.50 a pound. Got me $13.50. Not too shabby. Realistically, if the cast aluminum, which is the next one at 21 pounds at 35 cents a pound, if that was anywhere near, you know, like any of that was actually brass, or half of that was brass, I would have easily made money on this project. So realistically, I got $21.35. Kind of a cool thing. Their actual total was $21.37, but they round to the nearest nickel. because pennies are stupid. They're actually not worth a cent, literally, if you don't already know that. But yeah, so they rounded down to 21.35. So I ended up with, I would say I probably broke even or maybe lost like $1 or $2 on this project. Not too shabby. So moving forward, if I don't have that pitted metal, if I look for really smooth, nice bronze, or brass, I always say bronze, but if I look for that nice smooth cast brass at really good prices, I know that I can easily make money off of this just running around the town, just finding random brass at flea markets and all kinds of other things. So once again, not too bad. Out of 5 lamps, I was able to get 30 pounds of metal, 9 of that being yellow brass, 21 of that being cast aluminum, and 1 pound of that being just copper insulated wire. So not too shabby. It's to me, it's a lot safer than trying to get gold out of your memory, gold out of just about like anything, because I already know somebody personally that's lost their sense of smell to trying to break down gold scrap. So as cool as that kind of stuff is, I don't know, maybe just go for copper and brass. Just don't do it illegally. So, you know, not necessarily the nicest thing to do. So anyways, that was my adventure with trying to do brass scrap from just actually buying it in local flea markets and stuff like that, and, you know, Goodwill and all that. So good luck to you all doing the same thing if you decide to pick it up as your hobby. I'm probably going to continue it. So good luck until next time. This has been Vash Venture.